Hi, welcome to the All Things LGBTQ interview show, where we interview LGBTQ guests who are making important contributions to our communities.
All Things LGBTQ is taped at Orca Media in Montpelier, Vermont, which we recognize as being unceded Indigenous land.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hi, everybody. I have the honor of hosting today Jeremy C. Fox, who is the new managing editor of the Gay and Lesbian Review. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you so much for having me, Anne.
Well, let me start by reading a little bit of your bio, if I may. Jeremy was a journalist for the Boston Globe from 2010 to 2024, where he also served as an editor beginning in 2018. He began contributing as a writer to the Gay and Lesbian Review in 2012 and as an associate editor in 2017. He holds a BA in visual art from the University of Arkansas and an MA in journalism from the Harvard Extension School. He later taught courses there and at Northeastern University. He's the longtime head of the NLGJA's Boston chapter, and we'll unpack that a little bit in our conversation. So let's start by asking you, Jeremy, what led you to journalism to begin with?
As you just read, that's not what I studied as an undergraduate. I had sort of a circuitous route to journalism, but the two things that I had always been interested in from the time I was a child were writing and drawing and painting. And so I studied art and had great ambitions and got out into the real world and realized I was going to have to make a living doing something else. And so, somewhat ironically, journalism was me turning to a more practical career, something where I could actually, draw a steady paycheck. And I sort of bounced around a few different jobs while I found my way into journalism. I didn't become. I started writing for a publication for a website that some friends and I created back in 2003. And then I did some freelancing for some other publications, but I didn't really become a full-time journalist until I was in my 30s. So like a lot of folks, it took me a little time to find where I wanted to land.
All of this sort of post BA job, all these random jobs occurred in the Boston area. You've lived there for 26 years now?
Yes, I have. I moved here in 1999, and my first job was in a rare and out of print art book store in Boston South End, and a lot of my previous jobs have touched on some of the things that I'm still doing. Website that I mentioned that my friends and I set up back in the early 2000s was mostly movie reviews and some feature stories on the entertainment industry. And yeah, I worked for a while in nonprofit fundraising, which since the magazine is a nonprofit, that also comes in handy. So somehow I was always moving toward this.
Worked in a bookstore. I think that was your first job after college. Is that right?
Yeah, in college, I had worked in the university library for 3 years. And so when I graduated, the only things I knew were books and art. And so I found an art bookstore and got a job.
That's great. Um, One thing that I know nothing about is the Association of LGBTQ Journalists. And you are the head of the Boston chapter. So, would you mind telling the audience, including me, a little bit about it and how you came to be head of the Boston chapter?
Yeah, so the NLGJA, or the Association of LGBTQ Journalists, like a lot of organizations that have been around for a while, it has sort of outgrown its initials, but it is an organization for working journalists of all kinds, newspapers, magazines, online, TV, radio, and it provides opportunities for networking and for socializing. And there's an annual convention that is always really interesting. They get some great speakers. But the I've been involved with the local chapter for about 15 years. A friend of mine was the president and recruited me to be the vice president. And then he moved away to New York, and I had to become the president. And I've been that for about 10 years now. And we have monthly get togethers. We also work with other organizations like the National Association of Black Journalists, the Asian American Journalists Association, and the National Association of Hispanic Journalists. We co-host with those organizations an annual career fair for marginalized journalism students, and we try to do good work out in the community. The national organization also has a rapid response task force for when there are issues with coverage of the LGBTQ community. They will reach out to news organizations and let them know if they're not doing a great job, and try to coach them into more fair and accurate coverage of the community.
Yes, I was thinking, there was an open letter of protest against the New York Times about their treatment of transgender issues. Was that organization involved with that?
I'm not sure if the NLGJA was directly involved in that. I definitely know some members, including some. We have several members who are part of the staff of the New York Times, and I know some of them were involved with protesting the newspaper's pretty shamefully biased coverage of the trans community. That's a little hobby horse of mine, and I gave a talk at a journalism conference a couple of years ago about covering the LGBTQ community, and that was sort of my main focus, was don't do what the New York Times had been doing at that point, and sometimes still continues to do.
No kidding. In fact, I have a friend, Hugh Ryan, who's a writer in Brooklyn. You may know his work. He just published on Facebook why he's no longer going to write book reviews for the New York Times. So, very interesting. Do they charge dues?
Yeah, they charge dues. The amounts are a little different depending on whether you were with a mainstream news organization or an LGBTQ publication. They also have ally memberships. If you're not a member of the community but you're an ally and support the LGBTQ community, you can join in that way. And of course, they have reduced rates for students, and they do a lot of work with students. I should have mentioned, like they have an annual student conference, and they also have an annual program at the main conference, where it's sort of a boot camp for student journalists who report and write and sometimes do video or audio of a news story during the conference in whatever city the conference is in. They kind of go out and find queer stories in that community.
How cool. Excellent. Well, that's a
They
good
do a lot of good
organization.
work.
They do. It sounds like it. Now let's get to the Gay and Lesbian Review. Tell us a little bit about it. As if, some of the audience may not know, and what led you to it.
Well, the Gay and Lesbian Review was founded 32 years ago by my boss, Richard Schneider, has done a pretty amazing job of running the magazine for all these many years with a very small staff. He invited me early this year to step in to a larger role with the magazine and to eventually succeed him when he retires sometime in the coming months. And it's a publication about queer history and literature and current events and kind of I think of it as a fairly broad buffet of different topics. We just had an issue that was focused on LGBTQ experiences in in other countries and in parts of the United States before colonization, looking at traditional gender roles and traditional perceptions of sexuality before colonization and how those were altered by the presence of European settlers who imposed their own values on the communities that they were colonizing. But our next issue is going to be focused on kink and looks at some of the ways that kink has become mainstream and what is appealing about certain different kinds of kink to people. And every issue, as you well know, Anne, includes a lot of book reviews on books of all kinds of different topics, as long as it's something within sort of the LGBTQ sphere. It's a lot of fiction, but also a lot of biographies and nonfiction books. And we do some reviews of TV shows and movies and visual art and music, and it's really a pretty broad smorgasbord. And I feel very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in because I get to just read interesting stuff all day, more or less. It's there's so many different topics. We have a diverse group of contributors, and we get all kinds of cold pitches that come in from people who have interesting ideas and unusual perspectives, as well as working with a lot of the same writers, some really great LGBTQ writers who have been with us for many years. And as I said, I feel very fortunate. It's the kind of magazine that I want to read, and now I just get to read it and polish up these pieces all day.
So, as the managing editor, you've been charged with choosing the themes. And
Yes.
and so then my question is, how do you do that? What sources do you read? How do you get a sense of the themes that readers are interested in?
Part of it is, having many LGBTQ friends, being part of the community, knowing the kind of things that the people who I know respond to. Part of it is trying to read as much queer literature and queer journalism as I can. Part of it is also responding to the pitches that we receive. A lot of times, the theme sort of coalesces around one or two or three pieces that we've been pitched, and we see, oh well, these all have X in common. I do try to read a lot. I don't always have as much time. I definitely have some stacks of the New Yorker and the New York Review of Books and several other magazines that I need to to go through and read more. But I mean, I also I just read a lot of I'm on a lot of mailing lists for different publications, and I'll click through and look for interesting topics. And I spend time on social media looking for things that are in the news, things that are relevant to the LGBTQ community, and try to synthesize the input that's coming from all these different sources, and figure out what we already have done. The magazine's been around for 32 years. There are a lot of topics we have covered at some considerable length, and what we have never done before, like having an issue focused on kink.
Um, in another interview, you say that the review reflects old school literary values. Would you mind explaining?
Well, I think what is great about the magazine is that it's not trying to chase whatever's trendy. I mean, we do have essays on contemporary topics, and of course, we're reviewing books that are newly published. But it has, much like the New Yorker or the New York Review of Books, which I just mentioned, I'm behind on reading. It has a history, and it has a point of view that is relatively sophisticated. We have a largely well-educated readership. We cater to people who already know quite a bit about the LGBTQ community and our participation in the arts and culture and politics, but want to know more, want to dig deeper into some of those topics and learn new things. And I'm constantly learning new things. Every piece that I edit, every new submission that comes in, whether solicited or unsolicited, I'm learning things about queer figures in history and the arts, and in current events, who I didn't know nearly as much about before.
Isn't that great? Constantly learning. And this is my new criterion for print and general sources. Tell me something I don't know because I've been out for 50 years. You know, I read a lot.
Mhm.
So that's great. And the magazine provides that, I think. Um, about submissions, like um, what are your criteria for reviewing books? Does the book have to have been published in the last 6 months, or what's the timeline there?
We try to we try to keep it fairly recent. Um, Anything over a year is definitely,
Right.
that's gotten a bit dusty by that time. But it depends. The reviews. Some writers take longer than others, and they don't all necessarily come in like clockwork. So you may see a book reviewed in the magazine that has already been out for 6 months or so. And also, it's a bi-monthly magazine, and we have a fairly long lead time on publication. So we're not necessarily, like I come from the world of daily newspapers where everything was very of the moment, and anything that wasn't in the immediate past felt stale very quickly. And that's one of the ways that the magazine is a little bit more old school, that it's still a beautiful print publication. It's on glossy paper. It has nice illustrations by our house artist, Charles Heffling, as well as photos and reproductions of paintings or whatever is relevant to the article at hand. So we try to keep it fairly current, but it is a bit of a challenge given just the publication schedule.
Well, speaking of that, I've always wondered what the actual process is. Can you take us through the cycle of an issue? You've just finished the layout for the next issue, I think. So from beginning to end, how does it work?
Well, we've just done the initial layout for the January February issue, and galleys. I've reviewed the first set of galleys, and then they've gone out to some of our proofreaders, and we have a first round of proofreaders. Richard will he lays out every issue and he will incorporate the changes suggested by those proofreaders, and then it will go out to a second round to try to catch anything that may have been missed in the first round. And I used to be one of those proofreaders. That's what I started doing for the magazine back in 2017 or thereabouts, and I still participate in proofreading the galleys. I've already done one round, but when they're updated, I will go through them again and double check them.
So you proofread as a volunteer?
Yes. Yeah. You can accept a small honorarium for proofreading, or you can just do it as a volunteer. But I love the magazine, and I had a full-time job where I was making a decent living, so I never bothered with the honorarium before. But yeah, I've been closely reading the magazine for quite a few years now.
My first job after college was as a proofreader in a law firm on Wall Street. Whole different scene. um,
Yet probably not as interesting content most of the time.
Not at all, not at all. Let me tell you. And I had all kinds of political conflicts with that job, but as you may surmise. Um, how about from the beginning? So you get all these books, unsolicited. I mean, publishers send them to you, and then, how do you wade through and decide?
Well, our literary editor, Martha Stone, who has, like Richard, she has been involved from just about the very beginning. Richard founded the magazine. He's definitely been involved from day one, but I think Martha may have joined slightly later. But she's constantly on the lookout for books that we should be reviewing. She reads other literary reviews, watching out for them, and it is on a lot of publishers' mailing lists. So she responds to the offers, and we do sometimes receive unsolicited books, but mostly they come through. Martha requesting a review copy, and then she actually looks at the books. We have an editorial meeting between every issue. We'll have another one later this month after we completely put the January February issue to bed, where she and Richard and I, but mostly Martha, go through the books that we have physically received and decide. There's always some small percentage of them that we just donate to a used bookstore because they're just not right for us. I mean, we don't typically review genre fiction. We're interested in literary fiction. Obviously it has to have an LGBTQ element to it. And sometimes, it's an LGBTQ author, but they're not writing about anything that's particularly queer, and it won't necessarily be of interest to our readers. So we would often pass on those unless there's some other compelling reason to cover them. But we also, at the same time, we're looking through books. We're also responding to contributors who were saying, "Hey, there's this new Netflix show that's about a gay protagonist or a trans protagonist. We should cover this. I'd like to write something." And for movies and other art exhibits, and sometimes something musical or stage play. Um, We will field various offers to cover those, and we're also receiving pitches of essay ideas and sometimes completed essays that come in from our regular contributors, but also come in unsolicited from all kinds of different people. And one thing that I've been working on is going through a lot of those unsolicited submissions and trying to find new talent. Part of my mission with the magazine is to bring in some younger, more diverse writers, bring in some new perspectives, and to try to make sure that we are doing a good job of representing the entire LGBTQ community. It has a legacy title, Gay and Lesbian Review, because that's what made sense back in 1994. But we cover trans and non-binary and bisexual topics. We really try to be representative of the entire community, and one of my goals is to expand some of that and make sure we remain relevant to our readership and draw in new younger readers who have maybe a different perspective than some of the people who have been reading the magazine for 20 or 30 years.
So you get all the books, you have a meeting, and then you compile from the reviewing end a targeted books list.
Mm-hmm.
Does that happen after the first editorial meeting?
Yeah, the purpose of the editorial meeting is to put that list together, which then we send out to our list of past contributors. And I think that list is somewhere on the order of 100 people or so. Obviously, they're not all contributing to every issue, or some of them may not have contributed in 2 or 3 years. We do eventually like remove names if somebody just hasn't been putting their hand up in a long time. But we have a lot of regular contributors like yourself who have a review, if not every issue, every 2 or 3 issues, and we send out the list. We get responses from people who are saying they're interested in this book or that book, or sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 books. And we sort through those and see who put their hand up first, but also who is maybe the most appropriate person if they have some specific expertise in a subject area, or they have a certain background that makes them a more viable candidate. And then we email the writers back and let them know that the books are on their way and snail mail the books to them.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Um, it's amazing, really. How big is the staff?
The staff is pretty tiny, and I'm really learning since I've stepped into this role, just how very much Richard does, but how much the entire staff does. There's Stephen Hemrick is our publisher. We have a web editor, Allison Armijo. We have Martha, who I mentioned. We have a couple other people who help with some other administrative tasks, running our grant program and such. And then we have a handful of proofreaders, but it's a really small operation, and it really is Richard Schneider more than anything else. It's this one man who, for 32 years, has kept this magazine going. He's proud to say that he's never missed a deadline. We have been chugging along for since I was in high school, and it's been him that has made sure that the magazine keeps going and keeps making deadline. And I am facing the daunting task of stepping into the those shoes and continuing to make sure, hopefully, for the next 32 years and beyond, that the magazine never misses an issue, remains interesting, remains relevant to our readers, remains thoughtfully edited and well produced with lovely illustrations, and it's a lot.
They are big shoes. I have to say, Richard is lovely to work with. I've been working with him for many years, and he's really professional and respectful and easy to work with. So, and you said did I understand you to say he might be leaving this year?
Well, not this year, but he will be handing over his editorial duties to me sometime within 2026, I think. And he, as long as Richard's alive, this magazine is his baby. He's never going to entirely step aside and disentangle himself from it. He's planning on continuing to do the layout for at least a while, I think, after he hands over the editorial duties. And then at some point, I may take that over as well. I also have experience in graphic design. And he is continuing to handle a lot of our donor relations and wants to focus more of his energy on publishing books. We've published a few books in the past of some collected works from the review, and at this point we have an enormous catalog of, like I said, some of the very best LGBTQ writers of the past 32 years that we could choose from, and we've had some of our contributors who have collaborated with us in putting out books of their collected works from the review. Martin Duberman has done that. William Benneman just recently did that, a new book that just came out a couple of months ago. And so Richard would like for us to be publishing more of these great pieces in a form that you can put on your bookshelf and that will last a very long time, and hopefully reach new generations and new demographics of readers.
So now that you have been charged with broadening the constituency of readers, do you have any plan? How are you going to do that? Any thoughts?
Well, one thing is focusing on the kind of writers we have contributing. I really think that the contributors they literally make the magazine to some extent, and when we have a couple of pieces that are in this upcoming issue that are by young people in their 20s who are doing their first feature stories for us. One of them had previously written a brief and a book review, but he's moving on to a much longer, more ambitious, deeply researched piece. And so I think it is partly just having these younger writers with fresh perspectives and bringing in hopefully some writers who are names that will be resonant and relevant to younger readers. We've had a lot of the great writers of the baby boom generation who have contributed for a long time, but we don't have as many of the bigger name writers who are under 50 as I would like for us to have. And so I've been working with a lot of people in their 20s and 30s who are bringing us new ideas and new perspectives. And I think also, having more ethnic diversity, more trans people, more queer women, um, everything that we can do to sort of broaden the spectrum of what we're publishing, I think will help us, reach a few new readers in this category and a few new readers in that category. And also just we're trying to promote the magazine more on social media and get it out in front of younger people. I think there are a lot of people who would be interested in reading the magazine if they had heard of it, but they haven't heard of it yet.
You have a blog and various other um,
Yeah,
pub-
we have a pretty robust website that, in addition to having, our all of our archives going back to 2003. Also, we post new pieces on the site every week. We have a blog that is sort of a catch-all where sometimes it's a political topic, sometimes it's about the arts, sometimes it's almost anything, as long as, again, it is relevant to our audience. And then we have a column called Here's My Story, because we don't, in the print magazine, we don't publish memoir. We sometimes publish pieces that contain a little bit of personal reflection, but we have so many people who routinely submit first person pieces about their experience of coming out or their experience of aging as an LGBTQ person, or all kinds of different experiences. And so we have a section on the website called Here's My Story, where we can publish those. And also, we get a real diversity of different perspectives from people of all ages, people from all around the world, who contribute to that. And I think that, and the Here's My Story column and the blog are both free. If you want to read the archives on the website, you have to subscribe to either print or a digital subscription, which is a little less expensive. But the those two columns are free to anybody, so you can kind of get a sense of what the magazine is from there, and maybe decide based on that whether you're interested enough to subscribe.
um, so let me ask you a broad question. What is how would you assess the state of current LGBTQ publishing?
I mean, I would assess the state of all, like, not talking about book publishing, which is a separate thing, but talking about like all print media, online media. It's not terrific, is it? It's been a rough few decades. Speaking as somebody who worked for a long time at a newspaper, and has freelanced for some publications that no longer exist, I wish uh, the sort of heyday of like 90s newspaper and magazine publishing, when people were still making great rates on ads, and classified ads were still a thing for newspapers. I wish that era hadn't ended. Um, but we're hanging on, and we're actually doing pretty well. We have a base of very loyal subscribers, who many of them have been with us for a long time. We have donors, since we operate as a nonprofit, who help support the magazine, and some of them give quite generously. So it's a less scary place to work than a lot of media organizations are. And as far as book publishing, I kind of lament that there used to be so many like small queer presses that don't exist anymore, and maybe some of them survived in some form by being swallowed up by bigger publishers, but a lot of them are just gone. And I think a lot of the big publishers are not necessarily interested in LGBTQ content unless it's like, a YA novel about a coming of age story, or maybe if it's a romance. I was recently on the West Coast and I visited Powell's Books for the first time in Portland, and I was somewhat shocked to see like a really large end cap display of just queer romance novels. Um, which is like that's a whole category now. But I also wonder like how many people are writing excellent queer fiction that isn't romance, and they're maybe getting turned down by a publisher because it doesn't fit a certain category that they see as marketable. So it's a tough time, but it's frequently a tough time, and LGBTQ people are nothing if not resilient and resourceful.
Good point. Um, we're getting to the end, so let me thank you in advance, Jeremy, for coming on, and let me ask you to share some valedictory remarks. What would you like to leave our audience with?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been really great talking with you, Anne. And I appreciate all your thoughtful questions. Valedictory remarks. I I would just say, I want people to, whether they're reading our magazine or not, and I hope people will, but I want people to learn more about queer history and about their forefathers and foremothers and foreparents. It's such such an amazingly rich history, and there's so much new stuff that we're learning all the time. Some intrepid scholar digs around in archives and finds letters that shed an entirely new light on an important historical or literary figure. There is such amazing scholarship and writing that is going on right now, and there's so much history that I think young queer people are not being taught in their schools in almost all cases. So I would just encourage people to read, and if you're not a big reader, watch documentaries. You can find a lot of great documentaries just on YouTube or on any of the streaming services, just about uh, know your history and participate in your community as an LGBTQ person. Try to support other queer people. This obviously is a difficult time, especially for trans people, but a difficult time for everybody in the community who feels targeted. Many queer people are also immigrants, are also people of color, are also women who are having their rights taken away, and we need to be in solidarity with each other, and we need to understand and appreciate where we came from, because the generations who came before us had to be so damn strong to survive all the oppression and opposition that they faced. And we can learn a lot from how they were able to do that.
Absolutely. Jeremy Fox, thank you for joining us. It's been fun,
Thank you, Anne. I had a great time.
and I learned a lot too.
Thank you for joining us. And until next time, remember, resist.